Hello, wrestling friends. I'm Matt Coon, which means you're listening to, guess what? Wrestling Friends with Matt Coon. And I'm really good at naming shows, aren't I? And of course, we had our first episode last week, and we had a lot of good reaction. Downloads exceeded expectations, I gotta say. And also, of course, the YouTube views. Make sure to check us out on YouTube if you'd like, or listen to the podcast feed right now if you're listening. Guys, last episode was great. We had Seahawk on. A lot of people may not have known who Seahawk was. Maybe more people knew who he was than I am, but just a brilliant guy, a great writer with a lot of smart things to say. We really hope you enjoyed that. Of course, today we have a very special guest. His name is Colby Corino. Now, if you don't know Colby, you probably should, because not only is Colby a great wrestler with a huge future, he's 26 years old, but he might be the biggest success story in wrestling in so many ways. He has overcome a lot. His story of perseverance, his story of, just overcoming these things he's had to overcome. Addiction is something that you have to overcome. Mental health issues is something you have to overcome. And Colby, who sometimes you'll see talks like, he's been through the ringer, because he has, really came out the other side at 21 years old and has put together a nice career for himself. He's going to talk about, of course, how he came to wrestling, why he loves wrestling, his dad, of course, Steve Corino, the hardcore legend, but also how he came to overcome these things that he's overcome, because the story isn't mental health. The story isn't addiction. The story is this kid, and he's a kid, overcoming what he's overcome. I met Colby a few times, but really connected with him in North Carolina over WrestleCade weekend. And dude, he is like the most sincere, nicest person. But in the ring, he is innovative, he's creative, he's believable, and he's spectacular. So he's someone that you should check out. And also WWE agreed, because they signed him. But it didn't really work out yet the way that it probably should. And he'll give us a story on that. And other stuff we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about WWE Backlash. Because, what I was thinking is not enough people do recaps. I'm joking. I'm not going to do a recap. Just going to give you some thoughts. And then we're going to talk about AEW. A little kind of preview of Dynamite. But more talking about this 4 Pillars deal. And also some thoughts on Jungleboy. Jungleboy, got a little negative feedback for some people by his appearance in England. And I'm not going to pile on, but I do have some thoughts and something that kind of pisses me off when we talk about it in regards to what Jungleboy said. May not be on him, but something we're going to talk about. All that and more right now on Wrestling Friends with Matt Coon. WWE Backlash just happened this past week, and like I said, there's a lot of people doing recap shows, but I'm going to try to give an overview, just one fan's perspective. Y'all are fans, I'm a fan, but we are wrestling friends, so let's talk like friends. First of all, WWE Backlash was a fun show. Wrestling should always be fun. Like if you're just analyzing, it says something about the wrestling, honestly. It says that it's not that compelling. But it also says something about you and the kind of fan you are. And I know I'm the same way, that the backstage stuff, the behind-the-scenes stuff, is often more interesting than what's on screen. But let me tell you this, when the Bloodline thing was going on and going strong, we weren't talking about the backstage stuff. When Cody was going on and going strong, we weren't talking about the backstage stuff. We were talking about what's going on screen, and there was a lot of backstage stuff going on. But on Backlash, we had just an absolutely fun show. The crowd is the story. When you think about it, like, what are the best crowds in wrestling history or WWE history? I tend to remember those Crockett crowds. When the Rock and Roll Express wrestled, those people, a lot of women, would be screaming the entire time. And even when, like if you had Dusty in there, the crowd would be up on its feet the whole time. But nowadays, it's more of a limited commodity. We don't see it as much, but we often see it, as has been told a lot lately, with these international crowds. Think about the day after WrestleMania, typically until the last couple years where WWE just kind of, buried it. But the day after WrestleMania has a high international crowd contingent from people who flew in for Mania, and those crowds are always great. But this Puerto Rico crowd is up there. You talk about the best crowds of all time. I think about Chicago with CM Punk and Cena. I think about Canadian Stampede. I think about One Night Stand. There's a couple I probably forget that y'all are going to tweet me about at Matt Coon Music, because I hate engagement. But those are some of the best crowds on the top of my head. And also early AEW crowds, All In. I was at the first Dynamite. What a great crowd. This Puerto Rican crowd was up there. Bad Bunny. A lot's been said about how great a wrestler he is, and he's the greatest celebrity wrestler of all time. I'm not sure I'm going that far. He was very good. But I don't know, Pat McAfee's pretty damn good. Logan Paul's pretty good. I would say for sure we are in the era of the great celebrity wrestlers. Overall, with the matches, when you think about the two big matches, those are the ones we're going to talk about, the Bad Bunny match with Damian Priest was fantastic. For me, that's what a 5-star match is. A 5-star match is a match where people care about, and they care who wins. And they're invested the entire time. And it doesn't matter. I don't care if there's run-ins. I don't care about the finish. I just want it to be fun. And I just want people to enjoy it. I want the crowd to respond. And man, did you hear it when Carlito's music hit. I tell you, that match was one of the best matches of the year. For me, that's a match of the year contender. For me, that is above two guys playing human chess, that you see in the ring. As great as that can be, that I think it's very hard to beat a Bad Bunny Damian Priest match, or the previous year's WrestleMania match with Sami Zayn and the Jackass people, or even Austin being involved with Kevin Owens and Vince McMahon and Pat McAfee the year before. I'm sorry, Austin Theory the year before. I think it was all of them. It's hard to beat that. 5 stars, 8 stars, 1 million stars. Great match. If wrestling was like that all the time, it'd be the most popular thing on earth. WWE continuing with the title thing, the new belt, and I'm glad Cody's out of it. Cody has no business going for that belt, because Cody is trying to tell the story, and his story is the other belt, the one that his dad wanted, which has been merged with the one that his dad had. But Cody had a match with Brock Lesnar, and he wrapped him up. It's really clever if you think about it, because Brock had him in a Kimura, and Cody Rhodes got the pin on him. And I'm thinking, where have I seen that before? And I have seen that before in a real fight, in a WWE ring. Kurt Angle versus Daniel Puder. Daniel Puder was in the Tough Enough, and Kurt Angle was there to kind of rough him up a little bit, and they told him kind of shoot for real. But of course, because who's going to get the best of Kurt Angle? But Kurt Angle, great a wrestler, best wrestler in the history of wrestling, from an amateur sense, I don't think was ready for Kimura, and Daniel Puder got him in one, and Angle very quickly got him on his shoulders. Charles Robinson counts to 3, 1, 2, 3, and that's how Cody won. So what's more realistic than somebody winning a fight in a way that we've seen somebody actually win a fight? And I heard people saying he needs to be dominant. Cody should be dominant. He needs to get his heat back. Man, fans, we got to stop using terms we don't understand. I don't know what getting your heat back means, and neither do you. Let's just talk like fans. But Cody winning the way he did was perfect, because who's going to get a dominant win over Brock Lesnar? Who's the first person? Who's the last person who did that? Really can't think of anybody. And some people object to the way that Cody got out of the ring. No, Cody is a wrestler trying to tell his story. He wanted the victory over Brock Lesnar. He got the roll-up, and now they're going to have a matchup. It was perfect. Backlash was great. I enjoyed it very, very much. But of course, that is just my dumb opinion. Of course, what we say on here at Wrestling Friends, elevated discussions and dumb opinions. We have Colby Corino coming up just around the corner. But first, I got to ask you guys a favor. One thing that's great about starting a new podcast is we have amazing sponsors. And I really would like to ask you guys to support the show, of course. Follow us. Follow me on Twitter, I guess, at Matt Coon Music. Make sure to subscribe on your podcast platform or on YouTube. And of course, support our sponsors, because we have amazing sponsors, and this is a great sponsor you've probably heard a little bit about, but I think it might be time to pull the trigger on some Manscaped. That's right, because friends, family, and loved ones, I bet you haven't purchased a Father's Day gift, have you? You piece of crap. Not to fear, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming are here. I'm talking about our friends at Manscaped. They're saving the day yet again with the total package for the father figure in your life this year. It's time to upgrade his game from waist to face with this exclusive offer. Have him join the 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get 20% off and free shipping with the code WF20. That's like Russell Friends 20. WF20 at manscaped.com. Now, if you're like me and uncomfortable giving father figures ball products, well, get them for yourself, because we all can need them. Every man could use products to help clean that shit up. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you don't just get that. Of course, we're talking about the infamous Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. Of course, you got the brand new Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold the goodies. Guys, treat yourself or treat the man in your life for Father's Day. But they don't just have below the waist stuff. They got this great new beard hedger. The beard hedger is money, guys. Like, I use it pretty much every couple days. Like, anytime I need to use it, every time I need to use a hedger, I use this one. And it comes with beard shampoo and conditioner, beard oil, beard balm, which I use every day, and 2 free gifts with their signature beard comb and scissors. Love the beard comb. Guys, it's time to start taking that shit seriously. And this is the best, like, beard hedger trimmer I've ever had. And I have historically bad facial hair. And this is kind of the best it's looked. I know, it's hard to imagine, but it's all thanks to Manscaped. And if you have like real facial hair, like a real man, not like me, that beard hedger is money. Or you need to clean up that shit downstairs, get yourself some Manscaped. Use our promo code WF20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use code WF20. Make this Father's Day one he won't forget with Manscaped. He surely won't when you give him stuff to, shave his junk, and safely, and a company that's been doing it for years. And if you don't need that, get that beard hedger. Support the show, support our sponsors. Use Manscaped, promo code WF20. And we thank them for supporting the podcast. All right, wrestling friends, joining us now is an actual wrestling friend. Last week we had Seahawk, Cameron Hawkins, who's someone I hadn't really met yet, but this is somebody I've hung out with. We've had a good time. We talk on Twitter. We DM each other. He's someone that I love to watch wrestle, and he's got an amazing story. He is the last bastion himself, Colby Corino. Colby, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for joining us this week, man. I really appreciate it. You have an amazing story. When someone asked me on Twitter who I wanted on the show, I had your name at the very top because I think your story is amazing. I think what you've been through is amazing, and what you're doing now is also kind of crazy as well. What are you doing these days? I know we're going to talk a little bit later about your wrestling career, but are you wrestling right now, or are you on a hiatus right now, or are you chilling right now? What's Colby Corino up to these days?
I guess I really I didn't retire. I'm not officially on hiatus. I guess I am just chilling. I'm doing a lot of training at the Carolina Wrestling Academy, teach some classes down there, and I'm just really enjoying some time with my family, which I think I've really neglected all in the past couple of years. Like, I've been so into getting what my goals done in wrestling that, like, I haven't been able to be a normal person, and I'm taking some time to give my family that time, Like, just right before we did this podcast, me and my wife went on a date, which is very unusual for us. Earlier today, we celebrated my son's 4th birthday. We took him to the trampoline park, opened presents, did cake and all that. How
old's your son? How old is he?
He's turning 4.
Oh, wow. Fun age.
Oh, you're telling me. It's starting to get when he was first born, like, I always got, like, worried and anxious that I wasn't doing enough with him. Like, I'd make sure he's fed and warm and in his little swinger thing. And I was like, now what? Like, what am I
Right.
supposed to do with you? I feel like I'm
Right.
not being a good dad just sitting here and letting you chill. But now as he gets older, he likes to do things where we're going outside a bunch and playing with monster trucks. He loves to play Mario on the Switch. It's cool. Like I feel like a lot more involved with him now that he's like developing his own interests and stuff.
Absolutely. Matthew is 20. You probably don't remember meeting him, but you met him in New Jersey at a GCW show. He's a big fan of yours, and so I know what you're going through as far as being a dad and just trying to do right, and that kind of relates to my next question, because what I'm going to ask everybody is what hooked you on wrestling? Like, what hooked you either as a fan or as a wrestler? But your story's probably a little different because it's in your blood. Like, was there ever a time where wrestling wasn't part of your life?
Well, I wouldn't say that like there was a time that wrestling wasn't a part of my life, but I think there was like a time period where it was there in my life, and it was like, yeah, this is cool and stuff, but I'd rather be at home playing
Right.
video games or something, or thinking of something else. What really grabbed me, I think, was when I was 12 years old, and my dad went back to Ring of Honor. I went with him to one of the HDNet tapings in Philly, and one of the matches there, I think it was Eddie Edwards versus Davey Richards. And I just watched how they wrestle, and I watched that, and I seen that, and it was just like that right there is what I want to do. Like that type of wrestling is what grabbed me and really made me be like, okay, this is what I want to do with my life.
But what about as a fan?
I guess like back in the day when I was like a little kid, and I remember my favorite wrestler was Kane. Just the spectacle with his entrance with the fire and like the mystique with the mask
Right.
and the flippy hair, like that was so cool to toddler Colby. And that was like my first favorite wrestler. And HBK too, like his big entrances with the pyro and the shiny outfits and
Right.
the music, like it, I guess those were my the first times that like I was affected as a fan.
Well, the name Colby Corino has been around for a long time, and it's crazy that you're only 26. In wrestling years, in 2023, 26 is incredibly young, which means that when you signed with Ring of Honor, how old were you?
I had my first match with Ring of Honor when I was 18, but I was doing ring
Wow.
crew stuff with them. I think I started when I was 15 or 16.
How did you go about being trained to be a wrestler?
So actually, my dad never really trained me. Well, like he's given me advice, especially like more recently. But at the beginning of my career, Mike Keener was like my original trainer, and he would travel on the road. It would be me, him, and my dad. And before shows, he would get me in the ring. He would chain wrestle. He'd show me how to bump. He would show me the fundamentals. I never went to like a wrestling school. I just learned as we went. And then when I started going around to Ring of Honor, I got to learn from a whole bunch of people there. Like before every show, whether I was on it or not, I would bring my wrestling shoes, my shorts, hop in there, and I would chain wrestle and wrestle around with whoever was in there. So I got to wrestle around with like people like Brutal Bob, Roderick Strong, Chris Hero, Cedric Alexander. So many people just like would give up their time to me and help me learn, and it was awesome. I feel like I've learned so much.
Is that something you're trying to give back now?
Yeah, I guess Coach Colby is the new role nowadays. But
That's fun.
I love teaching and training at wrestling because I also feel like it helps me grasp the material so much better. Like if you can break it down to explain it to someone else who doesn't know as much about wrestling, I
Right.
feel like that solidifies your own knowledge of it.
So as far as a wrestler goes, you have a unique style. Like if you guys out there have not heard or seen a Colby Corino match, you got to check it out. You definitely, the word I use is innovative. You definitely aren't happy just doing the same stuff everybody else is doing. Who were your biggest influences wrestlers once you started wrestling? I know you said Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards were the guys that sparked it. But once you got in there, who did you start looking at going, that's how it's done?
So, so Roderick Strong is probably like all time great first favorite wrestler on top of everybody. Um, I really draw a lot of stuff from him. Uh, AJ Styles, I've watched a lot of him and how he like innovates stuff and would get inspired by that. But I try not to like copy too much from everybody. I just try to like get inspired by how they would do things and try to twist it into my own stuff because I don't want to copy anyone's stuff.
You talked to me when we were talking off air, or we were DMing each other about mental health issues, and I know that's something you want to talk about. Was that something that you always dealt with when you were younger, or did it happen more when the professional kind of pressures came along?
Oh no, it's been around like my whole life. I've never like when I was little, I never really had a lot of friends or anything. So like, it's always kind of that loner kid, and I always just felt like there was something different, and not in a good way either. And then I started to open up a little bit more in high school, but I don't know. I always just felt like there was some disconnect. Like I never had a real tight friend that like I really could trust with everything. Like
Right.
I always felt like if people would mock me for the wrestling and stuff, and even like the teachers, like when we're asking people like what are they going to do with their lives, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a professional wrestler. They're like, ha, no, but for real.
Right. Right.
And it just always felt like that vibe. And I'm like, I wrestled in high school, but I wasn't terribly good at it either. So
Right.
it wasn't like a jock or anything.
When you say mental health to me, what are what does that mean to you?
For me, it's manic depression and a terrible anxiety, and it's sometimes with my manic depression, sometimes it's weeks of feeling so good and then like super motivated, top of the world, trying to get everything done, and then there's 2 weeks that I struggle to get out of bed. I struggle to smile at anybody and talk to people, and it's awful. It's terrible, and
Yeah.
it's just every day is a. It's like it, it's a cliche to say that every day is a fight, but like for real, every day I have to wake up and I have to convince myself it's not a bad day, and I have to do the things that I've convinced myself that make me feel better to make and tell myself the right things to make sure that I have a good day.
Right.
Because like inherently, my brain wants to tell me that every day is a bad day, and that's not the
Right.
truth.
When were you diagnosed?
I first went to a therapist, I think, when I was 14.
Were you having troubles? Is that what led to that?
Yeah, I guess so. I got in trouble a lot in schools, just doing dumb stuff and like just stuff to get attention. I feel like
Right.
nothing super big or anything, but enough that people noticed. And I guess my parents took me to therapy to try to figure that out, and that's where I got that diagnosis.
And it's something you're under treatment for now. Like you said you struggle with it every day. I, in all due disclosure, I struggle with depression every day, every single day of my life. Every single day, I got to tell myself the same stuff you got to tell yourself. And usually it's at night when I go to bed. I'll go, tomorrow's going to be better. Even if today was good. Is that the same kind of stuff you deal with on a daily?
Um, well, I'm the opposite actually. When I wake up, I feel a lot worse than when I go to bed.
Right.
Usually, I can calm myself down and have and convince myself the day wasn't that terrible by the time I go to bed because I try to never go to bed feeling terrible because I don't know, like I feel like if I go to bed, I'm gonna wake up feeling the same way. But yes, I do have to wake up. I have to make sure that like I have a routine that I do every morning. And if even if I'm feeling depressed, I make myself go through the routine. And it's not nothing crazy. I make myself go downstairs. I get my kid some food. I do the dishes. I put some laundry in, and I just have to make like doing those things makes me feel better because I just feel like I'm getting something done. And I have to tell myself that there's nothing wrong because usually my
Right.
brain's just like I just have
Right.
this impending doom feeling that most of the time. So I have to just constantly being like, "Yo, dude, like everything's okay. Just get the stuff done, relax." And like I have to allot myself time to relax too, and
Right.
because if I don't, I'm just going to be constantly go 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 go, and my mind just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling, and it'll start to spiral if it goes for too long. So I have to be like I look at an hour in my day and be like, all right, this hour I'm gonna hang out with my kid. We're gonna build some Legos. We're gonna go outside. We're gonna go for a walk. I have to make sure I have a couple hours before I go to bed just to do whatever, play some video games or watch a TV show with my wife or something.
Are you under treatment now? Like, do you see someone now? Or are you on medication now? Or is this something you just deal with on your own?
No, I do not. I don't take medication, but I'm not trying to say that that's the right thing for you because I feel like everyone's different and everyone's
Sure.
treatment is different. Um, I'm not a huge. I have been medicated before, and I'm not a huge fan of having to take something every day. I don't think that's. I would rather have different coping mechanisms, and because I feel like if I'm taking something every day, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm not solving the actual underlying problem,
Sure.
and I feel like I need something that is just able to that I'm able to deal with and use my positive coping mechanisms to get to the bottom of the issue so I don't feel like that any longer because I don't want to just like I've had so many issues with addiction that like I know it's completely different and like I don't want people out there to think that I'm like equating a heroin addiction with taking antidepressants,
Right.
but it's just it's just how I'm wired, and
Right.
everyone is different. Promise you that like I'm not trying to talk down to anyone that does take medication, but it's just not for me.
It's and it sounds like to me that this maturity and the years that you've dealt with it have given you the opportunity to be more self-analytical about it. Like you have a system, you have a routine, you're monitoring yourself, and it's such a blessing because if that was something you would have been able to do a few years ago, you mentioned addiction and mental health like goes hand in hand with addiction. How much do you think that played into it where you weren't as self-aware as you are now, so you're just trying to just get these fucking voices to stop talking in your head?
No, 100%. Like sometimes, like I can even hear the voices, like not right this second, but like throughout my regular day to day life, that's just telling me that I'm not good enough, and like I have to like pinch myself and be like, yo, those aren't real thoughts. They're just negative self talk, and you have to expunge them, let them go away. You have to remember you're human. Humans make mistakes, like, and you're allowed to make mistakes. Because someone who's very hard on themselves too. Like the smallest thing could go wrong, and I think I'm a failure. And that is awful quality I have of mine. But it's something I work every day against too.
Yeah, you mentioned that negative self-talk. Everyone knows I have a good friend named Conrad Thompson. He's one of maybe my best friend, one of my best friends, and you might know him through podcasts or whatever. And Conrad, almost every conversation tells me, Matt, you got to stop with the negative self-talk because the stuff when I talk to him, the stuff I say in my head comes out, and then when he says it back to me, I'm like, yeah, that is kind of stupid. Do you have someone in your life that you talk to? Is it your wife who you can say, I'm starting to feel this way, I'm starting to think this way, you know, and able to get some good feedback from?
100%. My wife is that person. She's that one person that I can be 100% open and honest about feelings. I try to be very, very open and honest. Like if I'm feeling frustrated, I try to be like, Ariana, I'm feeling very frustrated about X, Y, and Z right now, and that's just how I'm feeling. Because I feel like if I don't get it out, that it's going to just bubble up and escalate.
Right,
But
right.
she is my one person I do that to. So, and for everyone else, I try to be a very positive talk to, and I try to not let my negativity spread out to everyone else. And I don't know if that's a good thing, but that's what we do. I
Yeah,
feel like we can deal with it, me and my wife, and she handles it pretty well, and I try to handle her problems as well. But I don't want to spread my negativity to more people that it doesn't need to be because I
yeah.
feel like sometimes, like the other night, I was actually talking to you, and I felt like I was doing a lot of negative talk to him, and I had to step back and I'd be like, dude, like why am I being so negative to Matt right now? Like I just need to calm down.
you, you know, uh, I didn't get that at all from you. I got to tell you, and again, it's that negative self-talk. It's that stuff inside of our head that doesn't exist outside of our head. Your career was on fire. Like you were with Ring of Honor. You were going to be in the New Japan dojo. Like that's a dream come true, right? And then the addiction had some consequences. They say addiction's measured by consequences. When did the addiction issues start popping up, and how related was it to your negative self-talk and your mental health and just your overall mindset?
Um, well, when I was like 16, I've always had like that negative self talk and the terrible anxiety issues, which I haven't even got to. But anyway, we'll just talk about the addiction for now. But anyway, when I was 16, all my friends were doing oxys, and I tried one and I figured out that these little pills that would fix any mental issue I had,
Right.
seemingly,
Right.
seemingly, they
Right.
felt like they did at least, and that was the tip of the iceberg. Because and it's I feel like I have the same story that a lot of people have. You start out just doing pain pills because you think the pills are okay because a doctor gives them to someone. Maybe not you, but somebody. They gave them to somebody,
But they
so
were
they're
back
probably
then.
safe.
They were everywhere back then. They weren't hard to get. They weren't
No.
expensive. Those oxys were everywhere in the time period you're talking about.
Oh yeah. And then a couple years go by, and those oxys do start being a lot harder to come by. And, people start cracking down on them, and they get a lot more expensive. And one night, I can't. Me and my friends, we can't find any oxys. And my one friend, he goes, "Well, my brother can get some dope." We all looked at each other, and we're like, "Are we gonna do that, or are we gonna sit here all sick?" And that started it off. And then I was off to the races doing heroin. I think I was 17 when I started doing that.
So you're already like deep in the throes of addiction by the time you're wrestling.
Yes, but I feel like there's time periods where like I wasn't like using every single day or anything. Like I wasn't like a hardcore addict where I'm
Right.
shooting up every single moment. Like it's gradual. Like it's like, all right, I'll do heroin every couple days, and it seems like there's not much that many consequences or anything. It's not like I don't do it when I'm in the ring or at wrestling shows or anything.
Right.
So
You tell
like no
yourself
one
those
really knows.
things, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The little lies that you tell yourself to just to get by, and as soon as it starts rolling up, especially when you're getting sick. It's just you got to do just a little bit to keep yourself good, and yeah. But like, don't get me wrong. It's not like I was constantly from the time I was 17 to I got clean at 21. That in that time period, I was not 100% on heroin every single day. There's I definitely tried to stop it and would have months of cleanness, and then years of terribleness.
Right. And you were 21 when I met you, man. So young, you'd already been through so much, and there was a couple arrests that really just kind of dislodged all those wrestling dreams. And is that the rests? Is that what led you getting clean?
I mean, I guess eventually, but the first time I got arrested was in December of 2016. It was 3 weeks before I had to go to Japan to go live in the dojo for a year. I overdosed, and when they came to revive me, I had all my drugs just laying out at my house. So they revived me, put me in some handcuffs, and I was off to the county. So
Wow.
yeah. So
And
then after that, I got out, and I think I spent a couple weeks in there. I got out, and I hit the ground running again. Like I was 100% out of the woods, no withdrawal symptoms anymore. Went through the sickness in jail, came back out, was sober, out of jail, right back on it.
were you telling yourself when you were in jail, you're like, okay, I've kicked it. I'm not going to use again. And the moment you taste freedom again, or were you just waiting to get back out there?
I think I was lying to myself a little bit, but in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm ready to go. If it's around, let's go.
Right. Because you
And as
weren't
soon
ready
as I
yet.
got No, exactly, and that's the thing a lot of people don't understand, and that's why it takes some people going to rehab 7, 8, 9, 10 times because people won't quit until they're ready to quit. They have to really want it themselves, and not just want it like not just to be told you need to quit and be like, oh, I guess I need to quit now. Like, no, you have to really be like, fuck, I'm done with this shit.
You mentioned anxiety. You said manic depressiveness, and you mentioned anxiety, and you said anxiety is a huge thing for you. How big a factor is anxiety in your life today, and how bad did it get?
It is still a huge factor in my life today, in the most
Yeah,
unreasonable of ways. I feel like, but that's
it's
just how
it's the
it's how
most
we work.
illogical thing, right? Like Dax and I did a whole show on it. We both have it. I get panic attacks probably every other day now, and it's like your brain can tell you whatever you want, but the shit just happens, right?
For real. Like, for example, like I think I've deduced that I am terrified of being alone, and that sounds absolutely ridiculous, doesn't it? But like, I mean, like not like the only person in a room or anything, but like in a place that I don't know anybody and no one knows me.
Right.
Like,
Right.
like when I have to go on a wrestling weekend and I have to fly across the country, and like I get my flight info, I look at it and I'm just like, oh my God, they expect me to travel across the country and make it to their wrestling show by myself, like under my own power. Oh my, like how are they going? How am I supposed to get there? Like I just, it's just mind boggling to me. And like,
Right.
or when I go for a lot of long bike rides, like, just in the my bike ride, I'm like, geez, what if I get hit by a car and no one ever sees me? Like, what if I fall into the water and then just I'm just gone? Like, I don't know. I have the most unreasonable thoughts of just being alone sometimes.
But that's what anxiety is, right? It's a lot of your brain running away with it. You know, your brain going with it. You know, like you can feel. I'm getting to an age now where I can feel the anxiety coming, and I go, okay, that's the anxiety. You know, but for years when the anxiety came, I would almost give myself anxiety by going, oh no, I have anxiety. Oh no, here it is. Oh no, it's running away with it. Do you have that kind of trouble, like controlling it as well? Or are you able to feel it when it's coming on?
No, I 100% have that trouble, and it's just like, and sometimes I can even identify it, and it still keeps rolling. Like even recognizing it doesn't stop the fact that I'm just snowballing, you know?
It takes some practice. You know, it does take practice, and it takes practice over years sometimes. Like, it doesn't just, like, knowing what it is, it doesn't cure it. But the more you practice it, the better and the easier it is. Have you developed some coping skills for your anxiety the way you have for your manic depressiveness?
Yeah, I guess so. It's a lot of just training it. I feel like I go to the gym to train a muscle. Like I just go for bike rides where I'm
Right.
alone and just to make sure that I know that I can be alone. Um, what else am I scared of that I have to do? Oh, like I always have a fear that people just do not like me. Like the people that I
Right.
interact with and on a daily basis and that
Right.
like I train with, they just do not like me. So I have to make it a point that I have to talk to a lot of people throughout my day, and I have to talk to them in a positive manner to make sure that just like nothing's going on. And
Right.
like I don't know.
It's a daily struggle, you know, and it is, like you said, it's like training a muscle, and it does get better, and it will get better. It has gotten better. You
100%.
you talked about your rest, you know, but you weren't quite clean yet. What was the point where you decided, hey, now's the time? Now's the time. I got to clean up. You're a baby, like you're 20, 21 years old. That's a hard thing to do, man.
I was still 19 right here.
That's
So
crazy, man.
yeah. So no, I still did not get clean after that arrest. I came out. I still continued to fuck up. Got arrested again. Became homeless. Lived under a bridge for 2 or 3 months. Got an opportunity to get clean. Thought I was ready to get clean. Still wasn't ready to get clean. And it wasn't until I entered rehab in October of 2017. So that is almost a full year from my first arrest. I'm just ripping and running for not wanting to do anything or not wanting to improve my life.
Right.
And October 2017, I entered into an inpatient rehab, and I got out, and that was 5.5 years ago, and that's where I'm at today.
But what did you learn about yourself when you were finally clear headed enough to think about yourself?
I think I learned how much of a toll that drugs took on my body because while I was in there, I went to rehab like right outside Philadelphia in Chester. Um, I remember it was probably 3 weeks into my stay there, and I was talking to a guy, and somehow wrestling comes up, and I tell him about it, and he goes, "Oh wait, you look familiar. I think I saw your brother get arrested last year." And I go, "No, man, like it
Uh,
wasn't my brother. That was
right.
me." And
Right.
he looks at me and he's like, "Dude, you don't look anything like that. That dude that I saw looked strung out." And I was like, "Holy shit! Like, I guess I
Right.
look a lot better."
So, at the age of 21, you're clean. You're in an inpatient program. How long was the inpatient program?
28 days.
28 days. How did you feel when you came out? Were you scared? Were you felt confident? Like,
Um, I think I was a little rocky at first, but like I had I met my wife shortly after, and I feel like she was a big positive influence on me. Like just kind of like she don't put up with no shit. So like
Right.
she would always be on my ass for what I thought was for worse, but it actually turned out to be for way better.
And the whole time you're cleaning up and you're getting out, are you thinking, I'm coming back to wrestling? This is what I'm going to do still.
Oh, 100%. That's the only thing that I can have in my mind.
And the opportunities you had with the New Japan Dojo and other, opportunities probably dried up a little bit. Do you think people looked at you at the time like, there's that fuck up, Colby Corino? Like, did you think you had some work to do to shake that off a little bit?
Oh, 100%. I felt like that was the perception of me for so much, and like it plagued my thoughts, and it caused me so much anxiety. But as I went through the years, I feel like it wasn't as much that like people saw me as a fuck up,
Right,
because that's not how I see people that are fucking up, for lack of a better term, today.
right. You see them
Like
as
I mean,
struggling, right?
exactly. Like and there's different levels. There's fucking up and there's struggling, and I mean I'm talking struggling, and I see people like that, and I don't think they're a fuck up either. And I feel like that's a very like detrimental line of thinking to recovery too. And it's I feel like if you're a recovering addict, you have to know that people are going to want to root for you, and even if they're not outwardly showing it right now, like everyone loves a redemption story.
Right. And that's what Colby Corino is a redemption story because this, I mean, man, think about it. Like, this happened when you're 21, you're 26 now. You started kind of using when you were, how old were you? 16, you said?
16.
So you have just as much time clean as you did using. What was your approach, putting together your wrestling career again? What is the options for Colby Corino at that point?
Well, actually, I had no idea where to start out at first, but out of the blue one day, Jimmy Lloyd, of all people, hits me up and he asked me if I want to wrestle on his birthday show. And
Jimmy
I
fucking Lloyd,
accepted.
huh?
Jimmy fucking Lloyd.
Right.
He's a different boy.
Yeah, I mean, talk a little bit about Jimmy. He's someone who doesn't get a lot of credit, but he's young. He's got a big future in the business, right?
Oh yeah, and like something that I've been watching Jimmy for years, and in the past year, like I've seen him cut some incredible promos that you would not expect to come out of Jimmy Lloyd's mouth. Like I feel like everyone online has this perception of Jimmy Lloyd, but like this dude can go and he gets wrestling. Like he's kind of smart. And, well, he's kind of wrestling smart. I'll go with
Yeah,
that.
and I saw Joey Janela said he wants to see Jimmy Lloyd against Will Ospreay, and he's serious. He wants to see that match, And I think Jimmy Lloyd is a talent, and I think he's going to hit it for sure. So you started wrestling with Jimmy Lloyd. You did a show for him. People start calling you, or are you still just hustling your ass off?
So that show that Jimmy did was with GCW. So like I'm kind of started making connections there. I wrestled at the Monster Factory in New Jersey around that time, um, and then I started wrestling at a few local indies in Pennsylvania and started trying to build that up. And after a couple months of that, I started hitting up a lot of the old places I wrestled. So and then that's when I went to VCW. So it wasn't the first time that I came back, but it was my first time back in
Oh,
Virginia,
okay,
probably
okay,
most.
yeah. I thought it was your first time, but for first time back there.
Yes, because I used to wrestle in Norfolk a lot, so that was my big return.
That's a weird venue, huh? Like
The Masonic Temple.
yeah, it's cool, but it's weird.
Oh yeah, I think it's a perfect venue for wrestling though. Those bleacher seats. It's a very interesting and good acoustics, tight
Yeah,
in,
and you
unique
got the
looking.
stage behind the stage behind the ring, and it's something you only see in indie wrestling. There's a big undercurrent in indie wrestling that a lot of fans might not be aware of. You talk about North Carolina. There's a North Carolina scene. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about. But as far as the indie wrestling goes, there's some names that people don't even know that are out there and doing it all the time, being successful at it. Do me a favor and tell everybody a little bit about the Ugly Ducklings. I,
Oh
I've
my God,
I've met
the
Rob
Rock.
Killjoy, and the funny story I have about Rob Killjoy is he was wrestling Brian Pillman. I was doing commentary, and he comes up and he goes, "I'm going to do a Liger bomb. So I want you to call the Liger bomb, right? And so I'm like, I'm gonna call it. Cool, right? And so he does a Liger bomb. I do not know why. I do not know why, but I yelled Michinoku Driver when he did it, and and afterwards he's like, dude, what the fuck? And I'm like, I'm an idiot. Super great guy. Talk a little bit about the Ugly Ducklings.
It's so funny you mentioned Rob because the day that the episode with Seahawk came out, he messaged me in the morning and he goes, "I heard you're going to be on Matt Coon's podcast. I need you to put me over on there." And I was like, all right, Rob, I got you. So, Rob, I'm putting you over. Rob's a great talent. I've teamed with him starting in 2016. It was me, him, and Lance Lude. We formed the Ugly Ducklings, and then we added Coach Mikey as our manager, and we killed it all over the Carolinas. To be frank, fans loved us. We had some amazing matches, and and Lance and Rob teamed after for a whole many years after that, until just very recently. Lance got cancer and he had to take some time off, unfortunately. But we had a benefit show, raised some money for him, and he is
Saw
now
that.
in remission from cancer. Made his return to wrestling, and is just kind of taking it easy as the days go. Like every once in a while, he'll take a show, but it's not all grinding every single weekend, multiple times all over the country. He ain't running that Rob Killjoy schedule where he's got New York on Thursday, Rhode Island on Friday,
Right.
South Carolina on Saturday, Florida on Sunday. That was a real schedule we did.
That's insane. Hey, so first of all, Rob Killjoy is a great wrestler. He's someone that people should keep an eye on. He's someone who's going to do some stuff, as are you. Talk a little bit about the North Carolina indie scene. It seems like a lot of the independent talk is kind of based around the New Jersey, Philadelphia area. Even now, New Jersey is really a hub. But North Carolina, man, there's a scene down there. AML, Dax and I talked about it. That's when you first came up on the show. Dax talked about your dad, and I said, have you seen Colby wrestle? And we talked about you a bit. John Schuyler, AML Wrestling, White Mike, a lot of cool guys down there doing some cool stuff that people don't know about.
Oh, 100%. And like along with the guys you had, like I specialize in the younger guys because if I can, I try to dispense my knowledge to anyone that will take it. And if anyone that it will help anyone, thank God, because I want to make wrestling as good as I possibly can. So like if anyone that's willing to listen, I give them advice. And so there's so many good young talent. We got Bojack, we got Diego Hill, we got Jackson Drake, Jay Malachi, like so many, Jada Stone, so many people I can just rattle. I could book a whole show with people just in North Carolina, and it'd be amazing.
There's a lot of talent in North Carolina, and there's a scene. Like there are people that come to shows, independent wrestling shows in North Carolina, and it's not something you see a lot of on YouTube or whatever, or you see on TV. But it's a real scene out there, and it's growing and growing. How important is it to you to be, part of this, North Carolina scene and helping it grow to being what it can be?
It's super important to me, and it's because it gives me a satisfaction that's akin to the satisfaction I get from seeing my kid do something awesome. Like last month at PWF, two of my students, the long shots, Drill and Dylan Crosley and Tenchi X, they won their first championships in the tag championships, and the building lost their mind. I saw grown men in the crowd crying their eyes out for these two kids, and
That's awesome.
it's this amazing feeling. Like I love seeing people like the people that I help succeed. It makes me all warm and fuzzy inside. Like I taught my kid how to ride his bike or something.
It's a different feeling, but it's pretty much just as good, right? To watch someone do well that you helped as it is to watch yourself do well.
100%. And I think that moment where the Tenchi and Dylan won those tag championships, I think that was that moment where it was like, maybe I could be a coach full time. Maybe I don't have to wrestle, but I need to wrestle. And then don't get me wrong, I need to wrestle.
Well,
But
speaking of coaches, your dad is a coach. Well, you're 26. Like you like when I was a kid, like I think John Tenta was like 26 when he looked like he was 40, and wrestled to was
What?
like, yeah, like when John Tenta first broke in like to WWE, he was probably like 24, 25. He was really young. And a lot of these wrestlers when I was a kid, they were done when they were 40, you know? But now you see these guys who are really doing a lot of stuff that we think are young guys that are in their 30s or their late 30s. So there's still a lot of time for you to wrestle and a big career ahead of yourselves. But you mentioned coaches. Your dad is a coach with NXT. How is your dad? We know him as Steve Corino, the hardcore legend who was in the later days of ECW, but now is a coach of WWE. How was he during all these trials that you were having? What was his role? What was your relationship like?
I feel like our relationship was obviously strained because I feel like he doesn't 100% understand addiction, and he's told me as much because he's never been through it himself, and that's okay. But he's always tried to do what he thought it would help and be right, like he's always all. I feel like he was always trying to read up and like try the things that he was finding online as like how to help a son with the drug addiction.
Right. So he's making the effort,
Exactly.
and
But
he's making the effort, but he doesn't get it. Like.
exactly.
And also, man, when it's your kid, it's different, right? When it's your kid, you just want your kid to be happy and healthy, and it probably hurt him a lot to see you going through all this. And I was talking to I think maybe a mutual friend of ours, David Bixenspan, about you
Oh yeah.
today. And so we were talking about how when you're 18, 19, and you're in addiction, bro, that story don't turn around. Not the way yours did, like 99% of the time. So your relationship with your dad was probably a lot of despair. Did you get that feeling from him that he was just really frightened about what was going to happen to you?
Um, Kind of. Like in the moment, I didn't realize how ridiculous my life was. Like when you really get down to it, when you're injecting heroin and you're smoking crack every day, like you're just kind of like, yeah, this is my normal. Like you don't realize you're driving 60 on a highway into a wall. You don't get it.
Are you at a point now where you're like, I'm glad I went through that? Or are you at a point now where I had to go through that? Or do you look back with regrets and say, man, I could have done differently?
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm glad that I did it, but I feel like having regrets is just kind of a waste of energy and time, and it's negative self talk that like I just I don't need. I spent a lot of my life fucking up. I've done a lot of things wrong in my life. If I sat around and I used every moment of my life to think about how bad it was and how bad of a person I am because of it, instead of using that energy to give people reasons that I'm a good person, then yeah,
It's a waste of time and self
exactly.
defeating, right? 100%. And you took off, like you started doing a lot of stuff in wrestling. You started getting a couple gigs with WWE. I remember a tweet from your dad, when you got on WWE. I think it might have been on 205 Live. Was that right?
Oh yeah, that was my first appearance.
And I remember your dad just tweeting something like "so proud" or something like that. How did these kind of that must have been just a huge moment for you to come back from where you came from, and now things seem to be back on track.
It was a step. It felt like a great step in the right direction, and it it felt good. I remember driving home that night, and it was just all by myself. And I lived 20 minutes from the arena in Wilkes-Barre, in
Right.
Pennsylvania. And for that whole 20-minute drive home, X Pac talked to me on the phone. He called me, and he was just talking to me about how awesome it was, and like how I'm on the right track, and like doing all these things. And I was like, "Holy hell!" Sean Waltman just talked to
Right.
me after I made my WWE debut on the phone for my whole drive home. Like that was crazy to me.
Is Sean someone who's reached out to you and talked to you about addiction and those kind of things? Because he's become, especially of late, very outspoken about addiction and THC and different methods of recovery. Is he someone you talk to, or was that kind of a one off kind of thing?
Yeah, I've talked to him a few times about addiction, and that's kind of how I feel like we got kind of connected and bonded a little bit.
Sean is the greatest guy. Like, I don't know him super, super well, and I never had met him before. We've met since and talked since, but he literally just reached out to me out of the blue when I quit a podcast, and he said, "You're good. You don't need to do a podcast like that. You need to get away from negativity." He just reached out. Super cool guy. I mean, really, really one of the best, right?
Hell yeah, he's awesome. I love Sean Waltman.
Yeah, he's amazing. So you get on TV with 205 Live, and then you had an appearance on the greatest television show of all time, Raw Underground. You
I was just talking about that. I should raise my rate after that.
Yeah, the Raw Underground. If you don't remember, don't look it up. But the just you remember Raw? I mean, it was a risky concept at best, right?
I thought it was pretty cool. It was like they see Bloodsport from GCW and are like, let's do that.
Right. But like, there's a wrestling match in the arena, and then like in the back, there's more wrestling matches in like the hallway. Like they had another room with wrestling matches, but you were brought up to wrestle. Who'd you wrestle that night? Because I saw it today, but I forgot.
Ray Rowe.
How did that come about? And did you feel like more WWE appearances were coming for you?
So the funny thing is that when he came in, he already had an opponent, and I was just supposed to be one of the guys on the outside banging on the mat, making all the noise. And he walked in to do his match, and he looked at his opponent, and he looked at me, and I saw him walk up to the producer. And next thing I know, I'm in the match now. I'm wrestling him. So
Wow.
and it was just because. So that was in 2021, I believe, or late 2020,
Right.
late
In
2020.
that area, yeah.
So that was because 5 years earlier, when I wrestled for Ring of Honor, he was one of my first matches. I wrestled War Machine, him and
Right.
Hanson, and they absolutely destroyed me. And it's super funny. He's destroyed me and squashed me in two different promotions over the years on TV.
We already told one Matt is an idiot story. I'll tell you another. So we got to be backstage at the Hall of Fame. We got to be on the red carpet, my son and I, because we had a friend. It was Medusa, who I was working with. She's like, "You want to go to the Hall of Fame?" So we're hanging out with wrestlers, and we're hanging out with Sarah Logan. Sarah Logan comes up, talk to Medusa. We're talking to her. Couldn't it be nicer? Her boyfriend's there next to her. I turn to the boyfriend and I say, "Do you wrestle?" My son puts his hand, just puts his palm. It was Ray Rowe of War. My kid goes, "Dad, it's the guy from War Machine. You fucking idiot." So we all have awkward moments, don't we?
Oh yeah, yeah. Ray Rowe was also a guy back in Ring of Honor that I would wrestle around with. He was a great amateur wrestler. I think he was a coach back in those days too. So we always got to kick amateur wrestling before shows.
So you're wrestling a lot of indies at this time. Let's say 2020, 2021. I saw you, I want to say a New Year's Eve in GCW. It was definitely GCW. It was definitely the Showboat. So you're wrestling a lot of different matches, a lot of different places. What are your goals at this time? Are you trying to hook up with AEW? You trying to kind of get in the good graces of WWE, or you're just open to anything?
I feel at that time I didn't really have any like long-term big plans. Like I want to go to this one place. All I wanted to do was to make enough money to from wrestling to support my family because I don't really care where I work as long as I make like enough money to doing wrestling because I love wrestling. I love
Right.
making wrestling better. So wherever I'm at, I'm gonna do just that as long as I'm getting paid to do it.
Well, one of those places that found Colby Corino because, you're making waves. Every match you're having's good. You look healthy, and because I'm thinking about the first time I saw you. You look healthier, and you look really comfortable in the ring, and it looks like this is a guy who's going to be in a bigger place. You hook up with the NWA, and you start doing some NWA dates. What was your experience like with the NWA?
I absolutely loved working with NWA. Like the locker room there, it had some of my best friends in the wrestling world. Um, I love that, yeah, that old school style, that hard hittingness, and that's a big thing that Billy always talks about is that like the NWA style is hard hitting. It's a lot of action. It's just like It's keeping everything tight, and that's how I like my wrestling. I like that good old Southern tight wrestling. You know, I like that wrestling.
You're at NWA, and things are taking off for you. You're starting to get some attention. WWE calls again. How cross pollinated is a relationship between you and your dad and you and WWE? Are these completely separate things?
Um, Kind of, sort of, like, yeah, I guess so. I would say they're pretty separate. I mean, like the wrestling's always a thing between me and my dad, but like I feel like there's two different tracks, you know? Like we talk
Right,
about regular wrestling stuff, and then we can talk about the work stuff that we like. That's the business stuff.
right. And with the WWE, they came calling. And this was when you were at NWA. This is when you're wrestling for the title, seeing your name come up a lot. The word came out that you got signed. That was it. Colby Corino gets signed by the WWE to be in NXT. And here we are many months later. And are you, in fact, with the WWE, NXT?
Uh, I'm not sure I'd be able to do this interview if I was.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to be a journalist. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really a journalist. So that did not happen. Are you at liberty to say what happened with all that?
I got the offer from WWE, and everything was agreed to verbally. They said before we send you the contract, we got to do this background check. It was like all good. I've already been background checked by them before when I did my first tryout a few years ago. Nothing new should be a surprise, you know. Like I didn't do anything wrong in the past couple of years,
Right,
so
everything's public, and your redemption story is well known.
exactly. I ain't got nothing to hide no more. I'm sure everything that's on there they've already known. So after I get my offer, I start getting my ready to move my family down to Florida. Sign a lease at my dad's apartment complex. Got like a place right in there with him. My wife was so excited to move. Like it was a nice community. Had like two in-ground pools, a little workout center in there. Like we were. She was so excited. We were both so excited because it felt like the dream come true. That felt like everything was finally paying off, and like all these times that we drove 12 hours one way, and then did a 2 3 hour show, and then turn around and went to the next town, did a 3 hour show, and turned around, did went to another show 12 hours away again, and then finally came home. It made all those weekends over and over again. It made them feel worth it. And then um, after we do all that, we get the offer and all that. A few weeks have gone by after I give them the paperwork for the background check, and again, it's starting to get a little anxious because it's been 3 4 weeks and no word. It's starting to come up on the date that it's time
Right.
for us to move down to Florida. We were supposed to move down to Florida on a Sunday, and on that Monday before, I get a call, and I get told that there is a problem with my background check, and then there's something from like 7 years ago, and that I need to handle that, and then after that, maybe get good to go. And so now I'm good to go, and it seems as though that's not the case anymore.
So there is no contract. You're not with WWE. You are a free agent. And have you got clarification on it about what the situation is, or you're still kind of curious about it?
Um, I mean, I don't have all the information that I could want about the situation, but it's just I guess I know that for right now it's not a closed door, but it's kind of a it's not right now thing. So
There's been a lot of talk about a hiring freeze. Do you think it's related to a hiring freeze with WWE, or you don't know anything about that?
I'm not sure. I feel like that they wouldn't tell me about it if it was. Like I feel like that's way above my head.
Right, right. Well, so now what's next for Colby Corino? Like you're wrestling. When was the last time you wrestled?
My last match was on March 26th at Deadlock for I wrestled Lucky Ali, and he made me retire.
And you're looking to wrestle again soon, I assume.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm not rushing it. I don't want to just I just don't want to show up somewhere just to show up somewhere. I want because I want to create moments in wrestling, and I think I really figured out like what I want out of wrestling and what I want out of life. Like this past couple months that like I've had to think about and just reflect on stuff. Like I think I've really sorted through the nitty gritty in my mind, and I know what I want from wrestling. I don't know exactly what I want. Like I don't know how I want to do it yet, but I know what the intended result I want. You know, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So I'm not rushing anywhere, but
You kind of know what
we'll
it
see.
looks like, but you're not 100% sure what it is.
Yes, exactly. Like I have a certain idea in my mind of what it should be, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make it to my vision. And I don't want to. I don't want to just. I don't want to sacrifice anything to do that.
Well, I mean, you got a lot of time to do it. You know, there's so much. I mean, I keep saying it, but like 26 is so young in wrestling years these days, especially. So that's the Colby story, guys. We're going to talk about some fun stuff real quick. If you're up for a couple cool questions, are you up for a couple
Oh
cool
hell yeah!
questions, Colby? All right. So when is wrestling at its best for you? Like watching it as a fan or even as a wrestler, when is wrestling at its absolute best?
Wrestling is at its best at the end of a year-long storyline where both guys are bleeding and fighting over not even a title, over a personal squabble, something that just boiled and bubbled over. And it's not, it's, it was the first, and it's like the last, the, at that match, it's the first time it's gotten crazy. It's the first time the Cavs really popped off. Like they built to that moment, they built to that crescendo, they built to the blow off. You know, it's the storytelling that comes up to it, and then it's the crescendo.
Can you what example pops in your head when you think of that?
Kevin Steen versus El Generico from ROH Final Battle 2010.
Amazing stuff. You know, it. How cool is it to see them on? Like I saw just some on Backlash. How cool is it to see them headlining WrestleMania?
It was it is amazing. Like these are guys that like I literally grew up with, and like I got to watch them grow as performers, and it's inspiring too because these guys were in the places that I was. I got to watch them as a performer, and now I get to be in their place, like kind of like you know on that in that indie level that like I feel like I'm in the spot that they could be in, and if I do the right things, I could be in the spot they're in now.
And with wrestling, or do you watch wrestling now? Or do you stay up on current product?
I stay up on current product. I go through phases. Um, when everything went down with me stopping wrestling and stuff, like it kind of disenchants me a little bit. But I think I go through phases. Like I feel like everyone goes through phases, honestly, from talking about them to where they get this like pro wrestling burnout, and that sometimes
Sure.
they just don't feel the love there, and I feel that too. Like sometimes I don't really feel like watching wrestling all that much, but I always feel like getting in the ring and doing it. And I always feel like teaching people. And I always feel like creating new stuff myself. But sometimes I don't really feel like watching things, you know?
As far as what you're following right now, what's the best thing in wrestling right now? What's something that you enjoy about wrestling right now when you turn on the TV? Anything you think of it?
Um, Cody story. I love the Cody story. And I'm sure, like me, and I think you were of the opinion that Cody should have run one at WrestleMania. But
Absolutely.
I agreed with you at first, and it wasn't until after the show. I had the show on my laptop, and I think I was playing Resident Evil 4 or whatever the game was I was playing at the time when it came out, and I was watching it. And after the show ended, the press conference came on, and Triple H basically said during the press conference, he was like, "If that was the end of the movie, it would have been a pretty shitty movie, but it's not." I was like, all right, I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance. But don't spoil Backlash because I have not watched it yet. I was just at the movies with my wife. We watched Evil Dead Rise, which is fantastic.
Will not spoil, but I think it was a super fun pay per view. It was super fun, the whole thing. So, uh, do you have who was your favorite wrestler to watch when you were a kid?
Um, Kane and X Pac.
The tag team Kane and X Pac.
No, not the tag team Kane.
Separately.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess the tag team as well was like that might have been like the mega powers for me as a kid,
Yeah.
but Kane was just big and red, and he had the fire in the hair, and X Pac he had the tongue and the bandana.
I
Like,
mean,
ah.
accessories are important.
Yeah.
You mentioned wrestling's at its best at the end of a year-long arc. You know, where are you at when it comes to the idea of matchups versus storyline? Like, do you think that most of the time they should be stakes, there should be a reason to wrestle, or do you think that sometimes the match can just be enough?
Um. So I think that wrestling, I like it. I like for wrestling to be presented sports like with a sports presentation. So sometimes like no one's asking just being like, and I'm sorry if this is not the right teams because I don't follow baseball, but it's like no one asks like why are the Astros playing the Phillies? Well, it's because they were scheduled to play a game against each other. That's why they're
Hmm,
playing a game against each other.
right,
Sometimes wrestlers are just scheduled to wrestle each other because they need it's a wrestling show. What else are you gonna do?
right,
Every match can't be personal conflict, you know.
right,
But I feel like the matchups lead to personal conflict, and they lead to the moments and the and they let the unique situations happen. And it's like I feel like my preferred wrestling style is like a sports show where entertainment stuff can happen. You know?
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've gotten to ask these questions to Dax Harwood and to William Regal, so I'm always going to kind of ask these questions because I think as a fan, it's fascinating to me. Wrestling behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, and all the stuff you guys do is fascinating. It's the most interesting business in the entire world. As far as wrestlers today, who do you look at? Maybe a young person, maybe an older person, and you say, "Man, that person is doing it right." Who is someone that you look up to? You're like, God damn, look at them.
As much as I hate to give it to him, I think like Lucky Ali is a top prospect on the Indies today. He is a total package. He's got the look. He's got mic skills. He can wrestle. He he is going to make a lot of money for someone somewhere, and it's just he is a time bomb waiting to go off.
Lucky Ali.
Lucky Ali.
And where can we see Lucky Ali?
He's the Deadlock Pro champion right now. Um, he wrestles for Catalyst Wrestling in New York as well. Um, he's starting to get around a lot of places.
And my final question is, when do you think, if you were to guess, we are going to see Colby Corino in a wrestling ring again?
Well, I mean, I need to get new gear. And I need to design all that new gear and stuff. I would like to tighten up my body a little bit and maybe add a couple pounds. Got to come up with a couple new moves. So, not a super long time, but I need just a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think you got to book something just so you can put yourself on a timeline, right? Like maybe book something in like August.
Oh, I don't know. August is my birthday month, so
Maybe September. Well, dude, I can't thank you enough for joining us here on Wrestling Friends. Did you have a good time talking to us? I hope you're comfortable talking about all the stuff you talked about because you talked about a lot.
oh hell yeah! Thank you for having me on. As soon as I mean, I've listened to just about it. I think every episode that you and Dax did.
Oh, well,
Big
thanks, dude.
podcast guy. So when I saw the new podcast, I was very happy to get in on it.
Well, dude, I can't thank you enough, and good luck with everything that you're doing. The Last Bastion, guys, he is a wrestling success story and someone that we hope can inspire other people to do the same things you've done. Before we go, actually, this is important, You got someone out there, young person, wrestler maybe, maybe not, who's struggling with addiction, struggling with mental health. What advice would you give them?
Um, it'd be honestly, it'd be messing around with drugs nowadays is just it's so dangerous. I feel like there's there's fentanyl in everything, and it doesn't even matter if you're not doing opiates or opioids or whatever. There's pressed Xanax bars that have fentanyl in them. There's tests that show that cocaine has been found to have fentanyl in them. Um, like I'm not. I know it's going to be very unrealistic for me to say don't do drugs, But please, if you are going to do drugs and you don't want to quit yet, please be very safe about how you do those drugs, because I feel like it's Russian roulette going out there today. Uh, it, you might just try to be having a good time, and who knows? Just because someone forgot to clean off a scale, you're done.
I got to tell you, man, I'm so glad you're not done. Your story's amazing. I hope it inspires so many people, and I can't thank you enough for joining us here on Wrestling Friends.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Absolutely. Wrestling Friends, wasn't that a great interview with Colby Corino? Colby's the man. Like I said, I think he is the biggest success story in wrestling. How do you grade success? How do you grade success? For me, success is making your dreams come true in real time. So, what's a better dream than learning how to deal with the mental health issues that many of us, including myself, have, and overcoming an addiction issue and putting it in your rearview mirror at 21 years old, and now having the entire wrestling world at your feet. I am really looking forward to what Colby Corino does next. He is a fantastic wrestler, a fantastic human being, and he would be an asset to any wrestling company. I know we'll be seeing him on TV soon. So speaking of television, All Elite Wrestling tonight has Dynamite, but I want to talk about this Four Pillars thing. That is the top of the card. It is the headline match. It has not been up, something people are excited about. When I saw some of these wrestlers in WWE wrestle, and I'm looking at these four guys and the way they're being presented, I'm thinking, man, these are not the way that four headliners should be presented. Is MJF a headliner? Absolutely. Could Darby Allin be a headliner? For sure. Sammy? Absolutely. Jungleboy? Yeah. But the way it's being presented, it's not working. And I think it's got to do, it's like AEW a lot of times, their end point is good. Like what they want to do is good. My opinion, I don't know shit about wrestling. This is just me as a fan. Like the end result is this Four Pillars match. I love it. It could work. It could be great. But the way they got there really just took all the air out of it. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, Jungle Boy can't talk or whatever. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think everybody in wrestling has weaknesses that you have to cover up in other ways. Paul Heyman was very well known for accenting the positives and hiding the weaknesses. And I think we're seeing with these guys, not so much weaknesses, but just the presentation has been, like I said, underwhelming. Here's the proof. I put out a poll on Twitter, and I said, what do you think of the Four Pillars angle? I gave four choices. First choice, fire. Second choice, good idea, poor execution. Third option, pretty cool so far. Fourth option, bad idea, done badly. 44% said good idea, poor execution. 27% said bad idea, done badly. 23%, pretty cool so far. And only 6% said fire. So 29% total have a positive view of it, and 71% have a negative view on it. I want to say that my Twitter feed, my Twitter followers are pretty AEW friendly. So this isn't being unfair. So instead of being like, oh, it sucks or whatever, what can we do about it? What can be done about it? What can we do? I'm not doing shit. I'm just going to sit here and watch it and like it or complain. But what can they do about it? I think they need to realize that what they're doing is not working and there's time to fix it. And I think they can have the same match. But there's an infinite field of creative ideas out there. And they should start pulling them in. Just off the top of my head, one of them is, at some point, maybe tonight, have the three other guys besides MJF say, hey guys, let's make sure it's him. Make sure he loses. One of us is going to win. That's one idea. There's several ideas, and I'm not getting into a bunch of fantasy booking, but I know that if I sat with somebody, we can come up with 20 different ideas. Now, I'm not sure any of them would be better than what they're doing now, but I know that if they weren't, I would ball that thing up and throw it away and come up with 20 more. It's not working, and it can work. The championship, AEW championship deserves better. The champ deserves better, and the challengers deserve better, and they can do better than that. Now, speaking of the challengers, I do want to finish the show off today with a little bit of a rant. I don't really do rants, but I think you can tell that, I try to be sincere and try to speak from the heart. And this is something This sounds like I'm about to be sarcastic, doesn't it? I'm not going to be sarcastic. I'm being true. So Jungleboy did a interview, like an in-ring Q&A, where he came off a little, maybe disinterested. It's kind of like, like Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm said about a friend of his. Another friend said, "Oh, he's an asshole," and Larry David said, "No, he's just shy." You have shy asshole confusion, and it might be a little shy asshole confusion because I haven't heard anything negative about Jungle Boy as a human being, but man, did he come off bad. Like if you haven't seen it, look it up. But basically, just asking certain questions about CM Punk, and then I heard some stuff about him in line. And then who does he take advice from? And he said he wouldn't take advice from Billy Gunn. He would only take advice from people that wrestled like him. Which, man, he just must have been in a mood because that's crazy. Like what? You're not going to take advice from Dean Malenko? You're not going to take advice from Mark Henry? You're not going to take advice from Big Show? You're not going to take advice with people with experience? Now, Jungle Boy's a young guy, so that's youth talking. When you have those guys, you listen to all of them. You may not employ what they have, but you give them the respect to listen to what they say. If I had a great musician with success wanting to give me advice and he played like country guitar, I don't play country guitar, man, I'd listen to his ass. And I have. And I always would. And I don't think anything could be harmed by listening to Billy Gunn, saying, okay, cool, that's a great input. And taking into account, there's a million great minds back. But that's not what I want to talk about. And I certainly am not trying to pile up on Jungle Boy like everybody else is, like talking about how he can't talk, and how, that's kind of the reason why the Four Pillars thing hasn't worked is because Jungle Boy is bad on the mic or whatever. I don't know what that means when you say bad on the mic. I guess maybe he could be a little more dynamic, but that's not for me to say, and I don't think that's the big issue. But what I do take an exception with is when he was asked if he would work with CM Punk. And he made a pretty big show out of not wanting to answer the question. He could have easily said, I don't think I should answer that question. Thank you for asking. Next one, please. But he made a really big show out of showing that that's not someone he would want to work with. And then some people on Twitter, I'm not sure how pure their, intentions were, showed me a couple tweets that Jungle Boy liked against CM Punk. One thing Jericho said about he won't work with everybody, meaning CM Punk, that Jungle Boy liked. And there was another one about a negative about CM Punk that Jungle Boy liked, meaning, he clicked on. And I don't have a problem with that. Like who you like, don't like who you don't like. But what the fuck with this double standard? Because Dax Harwood on the podcast we had didn't say bad things about anybody in his company. Nobody in his company. Young Bucks, nothing but good things about the Young Bucks. Everybody, anybody that you think, he was so complimentary of everybody, and all he said is, I want CM Punk to wrestle. But who? Maybe people in his company? I guess. Definitely some of the journalists are like, why are you saying this? Why are you saying this? All this negativity around Dax Harwood just saying CM Punk's name, and other people, and in this case it's Jungle Boy, gets a pass. He gets to do it. He gets to talk negatively about somebody. He gets to like tweets and let them be out there for everyone to see, and he gets to make a big show out of not wanting to work with CM Punk and put his hands behind his head and stand up and which is cool if that's your reaction, but if that's a double standard for other people, if that's the same standard you have for other people, fine. But if not, why is there a double standard being applied from the wrestling public, that's you and me, and the journalists out there? I'm not speaking to his company so much, but if the company does the same thing and gives, people hypothetically like Dax a hard time for just saying CM Punk's name or saying, hey, I think he and the Elite should work together, which they fucking should, they don't do that for Jungle Boy? And I'm not saying they should for Jungle Boy. I'm just saying they shouldn't for anybody else. And I think that's an interesting double standard. And I think when you look at the wrestling public and you look at the wrestling journalists and you see, why does Jungle Boy get a pass? But Dax is in the news every week for just saying, I like CM Punk and he's my friend and he should work with Kenny Omega and the Elite because wrestling's better with all of them. He's not putting his hands behind his head and sighing and all that stuff. No. He's just saying nice things. It's strange to me. I don't get it, and it kind of pisses me off. Because that's the kind of thing that ended us, that led to the negativity that led to us wanting to end that podcast. And if that's the way it is, so be it, but apply it evenly. But maybe it shouldn't be that way at all. I don't know. Doesn't seem fair to me. And that's my final word on it. And I don't know, man. What do you guys think? Give me feedback over at Matt Coon Music on Twitter. Of course, listen every week right here or watch on YouTube right here. And I can't thank you enough. I'm just a dude. I'm just a fan. I'm just a wrestling friend. Oh, I got to tell you who my guest is, don't I? All right. So, first week we had Seahawk. I guess you'd call him a journalist, but he's a wrestling writer. And then this week, we had Colby Corino, a wrestler. So I think we should get another wrestling fan. Now, Colby's someone I know. He's a friend. Seahawk is now a friend, and we have still not met in real life, but we've talked online, and we've DM'd, and we DM'd today, and we talk. But I'm going to get one of my best friends in the world on the show next week. He is one of my best friends in the world who I met through wrestling at StarCast Las Vegas. Quickly became a very good friend of mine. We have just such a good connection. So much so that during the quarantine, we did a podcast together. And of course, I'm talking about the man himself, world-renowned comedian, new father, Corey Ryan Forrester, the Buttercream Dream. You may know him from Comedy Central. You may know him from the MTV Movie Awards. But he's the funniest person I know. One of the best people I know. And all he's going to do is talk shit on me for an hour next week, and I can't wait. So next week on Wrestling Friends with Matt Coon, Corey Ryan Forrester, Twitter superstar. And you might know him from the well-read comedians with Trey Crowder. He's kind of a big deal. At least to himself he is. And I can't wait to give him shit about it. Next week on Wrestling Friends with Matt Coon.